Hi guys, it's Charla from That Girl Cooks Healthy. So today I'm going to show you how to make this delicious plantain pie. This is great for anybody that wants to make a pie but doesn't want to use potatoes. Instead, we're going to use some plantain to give it that nice island flair to it. It's really easy to come together. It's super simple and tasty too. And I'm going to show you how to make it right now. So these are the ingredients that you need to make the recipe. I have some ground lamb, but you can also use ground beef. The original recipe that I have on my website actually calls for ground beef, so you can use either one of those if you want. You also want to use meat that is lean, so you want meat that technically has 5% or so of fat to it. I also have some bell peppers. You can use any color bell peppers that you want, but I had green, so I'm just using green. Carrots, chocho, also known as Christovine. I have some chili flakes, some black pepper, some parsley. I have some cumin. If you don't like cumin, then you don't have to use any cumin. I also have some paprika, some chives, some cilantro, also known as coriander, but you can use shadow benning if you can get that. I don't always have access to shadow benning, so I don't always use it. Green seasoning. I have some garlic powder, some onion powder, pink salt, coconut oil, some chopped tomato, scallion, garlic, and some white onion. I also have, for the topping as well, as I said, I have my plantain, and if you notice that the plantain has the dark spots on it, so that's going to be some sweet topping. If you want your topping to be sweeter, then you want the skin of the plantain to be black. So it's really a matter of taste there, but mine for me works out fine with just having a few dark spots on the skin, and it's going to give me a naturally sweet topping to it. So now we're going to start by marinating our ground lamb. So I'm just going to add my green seasoning, my onion and garlic powder, my chives and cilantro, also known as coriander, and some parsley, my dried thyme. I forgot to mention that at the beginning, that I'm adding some dried thyme, some cumin, some chili flakes, some black pepper, and then I'm gonna add my paprika, and I'm gonna add my pink salt. So then I'm just gonna work that into the lamb, and I want it to be nice and coated. You don't have to use your hands if you don't want to. You can just put some gloves on. or use some tongs if you want, but I just find it easier to just use my hands to do this type of thing. So once you've added the ingredients, you just want this to marinate for at least a few hours, or you can leave it overnight. It's really a matter of what works for you. So I'm just going to heat up the pan, and then I'm going to add the coconut oil, and I'm just going to allow that to melt before I start the cooking process. I'm just going to give it a quick stir. That will just help it to melt a lot quicker. So now I'm gonna add my onion, garlic and scallion to the pan, and I'm just gonna saute these ingredients. So these are the base ingredients for most recipes, so you want your texture to be soft, and you also are looking for a translucent color, and that's when you know that these ingredients are ready, so you can move on to the next step. It just takes a few minutes for these ingredients to be sauteed, so it doesn't really take that long. So now I'm going to add my carrots, my bell pepper, and my chocho, also known as a cristavine. Now I want these vegetables to soften, so what I'm going to do is I'm gonna add some water to the pan, and that's going to help soften the vegetables before I move on to the next step. So this is what the vegetables look like after I've steamed them. It doesn't take long to steam them, probably about 5 minutes or so, but you want them to be nice and soft. And then I'm just gonna quickly do another stir just to make sure that nothing's sticking to the pan. So now I'm gonna add my ground lamb, and when I add the ground lamb, I just want to brown and just sear the meat. So I'm just adding all of that now so that that can finally be browned. So I'm just gonna fold in the lamb with the vegetables that have softened. So I want the lamb to be near towards the bottom of the pan in order for it to be browned. So I'm just gonna keep folding and stirring, and this is gonna help with the process for the lamb to get brown. It's gonna take about several minutes for it to brown before I add the tomato. So now I'm gonna add the chopped tomato to the pan, and once I do that, I'm just gonna mix that in with the ground lamb and the rest of the vegetables. I'm going to reduce the heat and just allow the lamb to cook through, and for the flavors of the spices to really come through now before adding it to our pie dish. So this is what the lamb looks like after I've let it simmer for a while. As you can see that there's quite a bit of liquid in the pan that I really don't want to go in my pie dish. So to remove that, you can either drain off the excess liquid, or you can do what I'm doing here, which is to increase the heat, and that will just allow the rest of the liquid to evaporate. So it took a few minutes for the excess liquid to be removed. So I'm just going to check. As you can see that there's no liquid, because we don't want that at the bottom of the dish. So I'm just going to add my ground lamb to, I'm actually using a oven proof casserole dish, but you can use a pie dish, a Pyrex, anything like that you want to use. As long as you can use it in the oven, then it's perfectly fine. So I'm just going to use the back of my spoon just to make sure that everything is even and leveled out. So it is perfect for the plantain topping. So once I've done that, I'm just gonna put the casserole dish to a side so I can now work on the plantain topping. So first of all, I'm just going to remove the outer skin of the plantain. So I'm just gonna chop the ends off both of the plantain that I have. And then I'm just gonna slice it lengthways, and that's just an easier way to remove the peel. It doesn't really take much work to remove the peel. So you can just use, your fingers and your thumb just to quickly remove it, and it'll be fine. Now I'm just going to just slice them with a knife before I boil them. So to make the plantain topping, first of all, we need to bring some water to a boil before we add the plantain. So once we've added the plantain, we're just gonna leave the plantain to boil now until it's cooked through. It doesn't take very long for this process to happen. So as you can see, the plantain has cooked. You can see that the plantain is quite a high yellow, and I'm gonna use a fork just to check that it's soft enough before I begin to mash it. So now I'm just going to mash the plantain. The plantain is quite soft, so you can do this with a fork. It shouldn't be too difficult to mash it. I also have some water in the bottom of the pot as well, and that just makes it easier as well when I am mashing it. So now I'm just gonna spoon on the plantain topping that I just mashed. And when you're spooning this on, you want to make sure as well that the topping is even. So while I'm adding it, and once I have added all of the plantain, I'm just gonna smooth it down so it looks like a really nice even pie. You definitely want to make sure that the topping is nice and smooth, you know, that it doesn't have any lumps, which is why it is so important to make sure that the plantain is boiled completely and it's completely cooked through. So while you're smoothing it down, you just want to make sure that it is completely smooth and there's no lumps. Now it's totally up to you whether you want to bake it in the oven, or you can just even serve it like that. I've made this recipe many times, so I do a combination of sometimes baking it and other times just leaving it. So this is what our plantain pie looks like. I will leave the link in the description box in terms of how I actually made the recipe and the measurements and so forth. Thank you so much for watching, and guys, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.